During our holiday break, my husband, David Chen, and our entire family had planned a trip to Northern Europe. However, just before we were supposed to leave, David showed up with his first love, Jessica Lee. That was the moment I realized he had never bought a ticket for me. With a sweet but obviously fake smile, Jessica said, "David, how could you be so careless? How could you forget her ticket?" Then she turned to me with a mock suggestion. "Why don't I give my ticket to her instead?" I smiled calmly and replied, "No need, I can afford my own. You two go ahead." I was done playing the part of the polite wife. After all, not everyone is meant for first-class travel. At the airport, David started handing out the tickets. I had finally managed to save up enough vacation days and was looking forward to a spontaneous trip. David had eagerly volunteered to buy the plane tickets while I was in charge of planning the itinerary and booking the hotels. I trusted him and agreed. But now that we were at the airport, I finally understood that he had left me out. I turned to him and asked, "David, where is my ticket?" He was still holding one last boarding pass, and the name on it was Jessica's. Jessica Lee, the so-called goddess of his youth, his unreachable dream. She was recently divorced and had come back into his life. David paused, clearly flustered. I must have forgotten." Jessica walked over with her suitcase and a bright smile. "David, are we ready to board?" She was wearing a playful sundress that flattered her figure. David's face turned red just looking at her. I crossed my arms. "David, what is this supposed to mean?" He stammered, "Well, Jessica hasn't been doing well since her divorce. I thought a trip might cheer her up. In all the rush, I just forgot. I didn't mean to." I nearly laughed out of disbelief. So he remembered her ticket, but forgot mine. "David, you—" Before I could finish, my mother-in-law interrupted impatiently. "Enough already. So he forgot. It's not the end of the world. Just go buy your own ticket now. Hurry up and board." Her voice left no room for discussion. My father-in-law said nothing, just pushed the luggage cart and followed them. David hesitated for a moment, then took Jessica's hand and followed his parents. Before leaving, he turned back and shouted, "I'll wait for you over there. Hurry up, we don't have much time." Without even glancing back, he walked off. I let out a cold laugh. So he wasn't even pretending anymore. I pulled out my phone and canceled all the hotel bookings I had made, keeping only one room for myself. Then I reserved 2 rooms at a remote hotel and sent the location to David. Let it not be said that I left him with nothing. You can enjoy a vacation on $10,000 or on $1,000. Have fun. I booked the next flight, first class. If I was going to travel for more than 20 hours, I was going to enjoy every moment of it. While I waited, I heard my mother-in-law's loud voice ringing through the terminal. "Why is it overweight? It's just a suitcase. Why is it so expensive? Forget it. We don't need it." From a distance, I saw her arguing with the airline staff. Furious, she opened a white suitcase filled with winter coats and exploded in anger. "Leave it behind!" David tried to stop her, but she snapped, "It's not like we can't buy more. It's not even that cold over there. Forget it. Leave it." In the end, they all agreed. The winter clothes in several suitcases were removed and shipped back separately. I smiled to myself. It was already November, and parts of Northern Europe were frozen over. When I planned the trip, I had checked the weather forecast carefully. I turned away and stopped paying attention to them. I watched as they boarded the plane. Soon it was my turn to board. Before, I used to pinch every penny to save money, but now, without David and his family, I wouldn't deny myself comfort. Over 20 hours later, I stepped off the plane, looking refreshed. The driver was already waiting for me at arrivals, and at the same time, I saw David and his group as well. After a full day and night of flying, David, his parents, and their companion finally arrived, looking utterly exhausted. The language barrier was a small matter. What truly hit them was the biting cold wind that greeted them the moment they stepped off the plane. Their faces turned pale in an instant. They rushed back into the airport building, shivering, and looked around only to find that there were no duty-free shops in sight. Clearly, David's mother hadn't anticipated this, and I hadn't mentioned it either. After all, not every airport offers duty-free shopping. Besides, the winter coats they needed had already been sent elsewhere. David couldn't hold back his frustration. He muttered, "Mom, this is your fault. You're the one who said it wouldn't be cold. You made us take all the coats out of the bags." His mother, who was used to being in control, snapped back defensively. "I only said it once. Why did no one stop me? Everyone agreed back then. Now that things are going wrong, you're blaming me." She added with annoyance, "Why are you looking at me? I had no idea it would be this cold." David's temper flared. "Then what are we supposed to do now?" His father spoke up. "We can just wait here. Sarah Miller can bring the clothes for us." I had already changed into warm clothes, complete with a hat, sunglasses, and a face mask. He didn't even recognize me as I walked past. Did they expect me to deliver their coats? Not a chance. Without hesitation, I followed the group of travelers out of the airport. It was ridiculous. I had come all this way to enjoy the Nordic scenery and to go skiing. In this kind of weather, how could anyone manage without a down jacket? At the hotel, I saw the ski resort was just next door. After a quick rest, I geared up and joined the crowd. With skis strapped on and warm gear in place, I took to the slopes. Around me were fellow travelers and ski lovers. We glided through the snow for more than 3 hours, and what a joy it was to spend money just for myself and truly enjoy it. I exhaled deeply, the cold air crisp in my lungs, and felt a rare sense of ease and happiness. When I finally returned to my room, I noticed over 100 missed calls and several text messages on my phone. I couldn't help but laugh. Clearly, David was panicking. After a moment of thought, I called him back. His voice burst through the line, irritated and loud. "Sarah, where have you been? I've been calling and calling." I spoke calmly. "I was on the plane. I just landed. What's wrong?" He shouted, "When are you coming? I'm freezing here." I played along, pretending to be surprised. "Really? But I already packed all the thick clothes for you before you left." He stumbled over his words, unable to respond. I cut him off smoothly. "Anyway, I'm about to catch another flight. I have to go." Then I hung up right away. A minute later, he texted, "Please buy some warm clothes for me. This place is in the middle of nowhere." I replied without delay, "You can take a cab to the hotel. If you had money to buy your plane ticket, surely you can afford a coat." Then I turned off my phone. I had no idea what happened next, but since I had booked them a hotel far away from mine, it wouldn't be easy for him to track me down. Just then, I opened my phone again and happened to see Jessica's social media post. She had uploaded a heavily edited selfie, barely recognizable, and captioned it, "Feeling down, so I came to Scandinavia with a friend." The post was full of likes. Someone had commented, "Who is this lucky friend traveling with such a beautiful lady?" Jessica responded with a smiling face emoji. I chuckled. Who else but poor David would bring her all the way to the Nordic countries at a time like this? People started catching on, asking, "Did David's wife come along too?" And, "Jessica, you're not trying to be the other woman, are you?" I didn't say a word. There was no need. Others were already doing the talking for me. Not long after, Jessica quietly deleted the post, but she sent me a private message. She wrote, "Sarah, please don't take it the wrong way. I only came along because I was feeling low. By the way, when are you coming over? David is freezing. Don't you feel sorry for him as his wife?" How kind of her, trying to guilt trip me. But really, there were plenty of people around David now. If they felt sorry for him, they could take care of him. Why should I worry? I smiled to myself and went for a long bath. 2 hours later, I finally replied, "David is an adult. He knows how to take care of himself. You, on the other hand, have such sensitive skin. Be careful not to get frostbite in this weather." She didn't reply again. I guess she was upset, but really, if she wanted to play games, I could play them too. Jessica's face had become stranger with each passing year. No one could say for sure how many procedures she had undergone, but it was clear she had spent every cent she had trying to maintain a look that was far from natural. I knew she had probably not brought much money with her on this trip, and I was curious to see just how much affection David would still be able to show her when reality hit. In this kind of extreme weather, without money, there was little anyone could do. Not long after, David called me. His voice was filled with frustration. "Sarah," David complained, "what kind of terrible hotel did you book for us? This place is in the middle of nowhere. The moment you step outside, you're surrounded by forest, and at night, it's pitch black. Are you trying to scare someone to death? I was lying comfortably in a spacious, warm hotel bed, and I raised an eyebrow as I replied, "How is that my fault?" I said lightly, "You gave me such a small budget, I had to make it stretch." David's tone quickly softened. He let out a sigh and said in a gentler voice, "Honey, you know I don't have much money. Please help us out. Just book us something better, will you?" I replied without hesitation, "David, you had enough money to buy a plane ticket for Jessica, but not for me. And now you have the nerve to ask me to book you a hotel room? Where do you get the courage?" I picked up the remote and switched the television to a news channel. The background noise must have given something away because David immediately lost his temper. "You're in a hotel!" he shouted. "Yes," I answered calmly. "Is something wrong?" "Tell me which hotel. I'm coming to find you right now." I said nothing more and simply ended the call. Then I turned on airplane mode so he couldn't reach me again. Before I left for the trip, I had already spoken to my parents. I warned them that no matter how many times David or his family tried to contact them, no matter what stories they made up about me being in trouble, they were not to lend them a single dollar. This time, I was going to teach him a lesson. Originally, I thought that after such a harsh welcome, David would either stay and follow the travel guide I had carefully prepared or give up and head home. But to my surprise, they were more stubborn than I had expected. Later, Jessica posted something on her social media. "When you're with the one you love, even the cold feels warm." The photo showed her and David wrapped in a thick blanket, smiling at each other with eyes full of flirtation. It was nauseating. Even more telling, she made the post visible to me alone. I took a screenshot immediately. Then I made a post of my own. "Having hot pot with some lovely ladies in Chinatown. This is the best." The image showed a bubbling pot, steam rising, our faces glowing with joy. It was the kind of warmth that Jessica could never fake. My post must have stung her because it clearly got under her skin. As for David, he lost it. He sent message after message, one after another, but I gave him only one thing: a location pin. "Come if you want," I wrote. "Pick him up? Not a chance." 2 hours later, the streets of Chinatown were buzzing with people. A local guide told us there was a lion dance performance organized by the Chinese community just ahead. I saw a tall sculpture of a white jade cabbage placed at the entrance of a supermarket. Apparently, the store was celebrating its grand opening, and the jade was meant to symbolize good fortune. Naturally, I stayed to enjoy the show. I handed my phone to the tour guide and asked her to take a video for me, something to remember the day by. I stepped beside the jade sculpture and began to pose when I suddenly heard someone shouting behind me, "Sarah! So this is how you enjoy yourself." David's voice was full of fury. Before I could react, my in-laws came charging in too. My mother-in-law walked straight up and slapped me across the face. "Sarah!" she screamed. "Look at what you've done. We're starving and freezing, and you're living in luxury. How could a daughter-in-law of the Chen family behave like this?" I quickly stepped back, pointing to the sculpture next to me. "Don't touch me. If you break that, you won't be able to afford the damage. And remember, we're not back home. Don't embarrass yourselves here." Hearing that, my mother-in-law grew even more enraged. The idea that I had challenged her authority was unbearable to her. "Don't try to scare me," she snapped. "It's just a rock. What do you mean I can't afford it? I'm going to teach you a lesson today, you ungrateful woman." She lunged at me, raising her hand to strike again. David tried to grab me too, his face twisted in anger. Seeing the man I once trusted so full of rage, something inside me turned cold. I didn't even think. I kicked out hard, hitting him squarely below the belt. He doubled over in pain, and I twisted away just in time. My mother-in-law, unable to stop her momentum, stumbled forward and crashed to the ground. Around us, drums and cymbals were ringing out from the lion dance, but her scream pierced through all the noise. Then came a loud, crashing thud. Everyone turned to look. The moment the display case shattered and vegetables rolled across the floor, the store owner's face turned a sickly shade of green. But my mother-in-law, completely unaware of the chaos she had caused, scrambled to her feet and lunged toward me with fury in her eyes. Before her hands could even reach me, several people stepped in and pinned her to the ground. Let me go, she shouted, thrashing. Do you even know who I am? I looked down at her, the corners of my mouth curling into a cold smile. They may not know who you are, I said calmly, but they are about to find out. You are now their biggest debtor. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Debtor? What are you talking about? Without wasting another word, I called the police. After all, this entire scene started because of me, and today of all days was supposed to be the grand opening of this small shop. I had no idea whether the cabbage she had knocked over was authentic or not, but it had clearly been imported, and that alone would not have been cheap. Now it was crushed on the floor, along with the shattered display. The owner immediately contacted the head of the local Chinese community, and soon a crowd gathered around my mother-in-law and her companions. David rushed over, clearly panicked, and called out, "Sarah, what are you doing?" My mom was just upset. "Do you even realize how far the hotel you booked is? We were freezing out there." I looked at him, saw the concern on his face, and gave a short, bitter laugh. "So what?" I said sharply. "I booked the hotel. I wrote the travel guide. You bought a plane ticket for another woman and left me alone at the airport. And now you have the nerve to lay a hand on me? I prepared down jackets for all of you, but you refused to bring them, and now you blame me. Your entire family has spent my money like it meant nothing, treated me like I was nothing, and now you hit me. David, what gives you the right?" The surrounding crowd, mostly older locals, quickly caught on and started chiming in. A white-haired woman asked in disbelief, "Did she just say this is her husband?" Another woman added, "Why would you stay with a man like that?" And his mother, "She's something else." A kind older lady stepped forward, putting herself between me and the others, then turned toward David and his mother and scolded them fiercely. "This young woman was so polite to us earlier. She's not someone who causes trouble. You abandoned her and now have the nerve to blame her." "Exactly. Left her behind and still expect her to be grateful. And at that age, how do you not know better? Hitting people like that? Do you not realize this is a foreign country? You're a family of leeches. You've embarrassed yourselves in front of the whole world." My mother-in-law, flustered and unable to handle the verbal attacks, puffed out her chest and started shouting with arms akimbo, "Mind your own business. She's my daughter-in-law and I can discipline her as I please. She belongs to the Chen family. If I want to hit her, I will. I don't need to pick a special day for it. Her money is our Chen family's money. Whatever she earns belongs to my son, and my son can spend it however he likes. And what's wrong with other women? That just means my son is capable." Her words ignited the crowd's fury, and everyone started yelling back at her. The store owner stepped forward, his voice firm, "If you don't pay for the damages, you can leave a leg behind instead." Faced with the growing anger around her, my mother-in-law began to shrink. When the police arrived and started asking questions, David and his mother tried to explain themselves, but she didn't understand a word. She just kept repeating the same line. "It was not on purpose. It's just a pile of vegetables. How much could it possibly be worth?" The police were not impressed. They gestured for her to calm down, but instead she tried to push one of them. That was the final straw. With a swift motion, the officer flipped her to the ground, pinning her down with practiced ease. The crowd erupted in cheers. David's face turned pale, realizing things had gotten out of hand. He tried to speak to the police in broken English, but it was too late. The officers, not interested in excuses, took them all into custody. Only then did my father-in-law start to panic. "Sarah," he pleaded, "your mother-in-law didn't mean it. Please go explain to them." I looked at him without emotion. "You embarrassed yourselves in a foreign country, and now you want me to help? I will, but only if you sign the divorce papers. Whether the store owner forgives you or not, that I can't promise." I had made up my mind. What happened today was not just a one-time event. I knew now, without a doubt, that David and Jessica had been entangled in more than just this. A friend of mine reached out to me in a hushed tone. She said, "Sarah, I know you're not that kind of person, but the whole thing has already spread online. Even the fight you had outside. Just be careful." I worked in international trade, and many of my clients followed my social media updates. The moment she said that, I understood immediately. This was no accident. Someone was trying to humiliate me on purpose. What started as a personal family issue had now been twisted and broadcast as an international scandal. I asked my friend to help me trace the IP address of the person who had posted about it. At the same time, I made a public announcement on my page, declaring that David and I were getting divorced and made it very clear that it was because he had cheated. The post quickly drew a flood of comments. I went through them one by one and deleted anyone who tried to defend David. My contacts list got a thorough cleanup that day. Thankfully, many friends understood and supported me. Some even offered to introduce me to good lawyers. I thanked them all and filed a police report. I wanted them to know I was not alone. It was during this time that David reached out to me. The police had followed the digital trail and identified the original poster. It was Jessica. She was taken in by the police, and she had sent David to try and negotiate a settlement with me. I gave them two options. Jessica would pay me a compensation of $10,000, and she would also issue a public apology, admitting she had pursued David. That was when Jessica lost her composure. David turned to me, his face dark with frustration. He said, "Sarah, you already have everything. Why are you pushing so hard?" She didn't mean harm, she only wanted to stand up for me. I let out a laugh. "David, you must be out of your mind. What she did was illegal." I added, "Let me be clear, the harm and damage she caused will not go unanswered. She can either face jail time or pay the compensation and publicly apologize. Otherwise, I will escalate this and turn it into an international matter." I narrowed my eyes and continued, "And you wouldn't want me to expose everything your mother did to me while we were abroad, would you?" David clenched his fists, struggling to keep his anger in check. Just then, his mother barged in. "Sarah, you're heartless," she shouted. Then she turned to David and said, "Tell Jessica we will not settle." I shrugged. "Fine with me." I turned and pretended to walk away. David panicked. "Wait!" I stopped and looked back. He seemed to hesitate, then gritted his teeth and said, "All right, I'll pay. As for the apology, I'll talk to her." His mother was stunned. "David, have you lost your mind? Where will you get that kind of money?" But David was looking at me. I smirked. We had already signed the divorce agreement. Because he had cheated, I only gave him $10,000 in the settlement. Now I was asking for another $10,000, which meant he would walk away with nothing. "Good, just make sure Jessica makes a public apology," I said. His mother looked like she was about to explode. She clenched her teeth and raised her voice to curse me, but I held up a finger and wagged it slowly. "One word from you, and I'll expose everything you did overseas." She fumed with rage, but in the end, said nothing more. That same day, David transferred the money to me. Jessica, under pressure, finally issued a public apology. The online backlash was swift and fierce. So she was the other woman all along. No wonder she tried to smear the real wife. I heard Sarah had already taken a firm stand while living abroad and filed for divorce right away. She is amazing. I truly admire how strong and decisive she is. If it were me, I don't know if I could have done the same. As I watched Jessica cry into the camera and apologize to the public, I couldn't help but feel satisfied. A month later, David handed me our divorce certificate. Not long after, he took Jessica to register their marriage. Jessica messaged me, "Sarah, I told you a long time ago you will never be better than me." I replied immediately, "You're right. You two are made for each other. Please stay together forever and do the world a favor. Never show up around me again." After David and Jessica registered their marriage, my former mother-in-law even posted a video on social media. She said cheerfully, "Congratulations to my son for finally breaking free from the shadow of a controlling wife. Welcome to the family, Jessica. True love always finds a way. Our home will be even happier now." I couldn't help but give the post a like, but when I glanced at the comment section, many users were criticizing her harshly. Still, she carried on sharing her family's daily life, completely unfazed. I had to admit, she really did have a thick skin. Just 2 days later, she posted another video. "This time," she said proudly, "my sweet daughter-in-law invited us on a trip, flights to both Hong Kong and Macau." She smiled into the camera, saying, "Do you see this? This is what real family looks like." In the footage, she was seated on a plane, gazing out the window with a wide smile. Jessica and David sat beside her. The four of them had finally started their long awaited domestic vacation, but some sharp eyed users quickly noticed something unusual. One person commented, "This is one of those cheap package tours, the Hong Kong Macau trip for $199. That's a shopping group tour. If you don't buy anything, they won't even give you a place to sit." Another said, "My mom joined that same group. She ended up spending $60,000 on a piece of jade." I was furious. Someone else added sarcastically, "What a thoughtful new daughter-in-law. Just wait, you'll be crying before the trip ends." David quickly replied to the comments, "You're just jealous. Jessica is a good person. Stop trying to stir up trouble." I couldn't help but laugh. That $199 tour price, after travel and accommodation costs, what would they even be left with? The funny thing was, David used to tell me those kinds of tours were scams and never to trust them. And now, here he was, happily on board. Well then, I hoped they enjoyed their trip. It had nothing to do with me anymore, and I was not the least bit interested in where they went. After the divorce, many of my clients chose to stay with me. Compared to me, David had never performed as well in our line of work. For the past 2 years, if I hadn't referred clients to him, he would have had a hard time staying afloat. Now, during a critical time, he had taken off with Jessica on vacation. So I decided not to hold back. I went ahead and took over all of his accounts. Even our boss at the company joked, "Love life may be messy, but your career is thriving." I just smiled and said nothing. After all, nothing cheers me up more than making money, especially when it's coming from my ex. Why should I go easy on him? After burying myself in work for a while, I finally scrolled through social media again and saw a new video from my former mother-in-law. This time, the background was a crowded tour bus. She was shouting into the camera, "Oh my goodness, we finally got out, but now we can't get back. Can someone please tell me how to go home? Is there any way I can leave on my own?" I was confused and curious, so I looked into it. As it turned out, she really had joined one of those bargain basement group tours. In the beginning, she still had the energy to record videos and share her travel experiences online, but things started to fall apart quickly. When they finally arrived at the hotel, the tour arranged a group dinner, 10 people to a table. She barely sat down when the rotating tray spun around and all the dishes were gone. At first, she tried to be polite, but soon enough, she joined David and Jessica in elbowing their way to the food, just like everyone else. She began complaining that the meals were terrible and the hotel room even worse. She filmed herself saying, "The room has no windows. It's tiny. You walk in and the bed is right there. How are we supposed to sleep like this?" She sighed heavily. "Trying to save a little money ends up costing a lot more. I just want to go home." Later, things got worse. Every single day was filled with forced shopping stops. There were no actual sightseeing opportunities at all. She finally started to regret the trip. Now they were trapped in a store and no one was even allowed to sit down. Out of options, she turned to social media for help. People in the comments were having a field day. "We told you this was one of those shady tours. You didn't believe us. Now it's too late unless you pay up. Better put your phone away. They might smash it next. They won't even let you touch your phone if you keep filming. If you don't buy anything, no one on that bus will be allowed to leave. That's how these tours work." But my former mother-in-law replied with determination, "I will not buy a thing, and none of us will. We will hold out until the end." A brave soul indeed. After that last post, Jessica never updated her account again. Then, out of the blue, a friend sent me a video. "Sarah, is this David?" she asked. I opened the clip. It was filmed in a dim corner somewhere remote. A man was surrounded by several burly men, and a woman nearby was crying uncontrollably, her hair messy, her face streaked with tears. The man's voice trembled as he tried to raise it. "What do you want from us?" he shouted weakly. It was unmistakable. That was David. A rough voice barked back. "You think you can just leave without buying anything? You joined a discount tour group and now you're telling others not to buy? You don't want to spend, fine. But you ran your mouth and now nobody wants to buy anything. Someone has to pay for that and that someone is you." David tried to argue, his neck straining in defiance. "Why should I—" Smack! A heavy slap landed on his cheek, knocking his head to the side. He froze instantly, lips sealed, his pride silenced by fear. "Because I said so," the man snapped. The blow turned David's face red and left him visibly shaken. He was too frightened to say another word. Beside him, Jessica begged, her voice thin and shaking. "He didn't mean it. We'll buy something. If we pay, can we leave then?" One of the men sneered. "Now this young lady knows how to behave. That's the smart way to deal with things. Pay up and move along." The video ended with David being dragged away and Jessica's panicked scream echoed in the background. I had no idea what happened after that, but the fact that the video had gone public meant they had made it back. I messaged my friend. "That really is David. Where did this come from?" She sounded thrilled. "It's from a friend of mine in the travel business. Everyone in their circle has seen it by now." Then she added, "You know what? The tour guide and Jessica were working together. For every elderly person Jessica brought onto the trip, she earned $60. 60! And these are budget tours. Do you know how little they cost overall?" She continued, almost laughing. "Jessica pocketed the commission and then shoved her in-laws onto the tour while she went off with David to count money. But David, that fool, actually convinced his parents not to buy anything. You know how sharp his parents' tongues are? They ended up getting beaten badly." I sat in silence, letting it all sink in. I never imagined Jessica would go that far, profiting off unsuspecting seniors, including David's own parents, and then turning the trip into a scam just to make a few bucks. And David, instead of lying low, he stirred up trouble inside the group. Between her tricks and his arrogance, they spent nothing and walked away thinking they had won. But the tour organizers were not about to let that slide. The next time I saw David, it was in a hospital. Our company had scheduled physical checkups, and I was waiting in line when I spotted him. He was in a wheelchair, his face bruised and swollen, one arm in a sling. It was clear something had been broken. When he saw me, his lips moved quickly, and he signaled the nurse to bring him over. His eyes were wet with tears by the time he reached me. "Sarah," he whispered. I gave him a small nod. "Do you need something?" "You came to see me?" he asked hopefully. "I knew it. I knew in the end you were the only one who still cared." I smiled. "You misunderstood. I'm just here for a checkup. Whatever is going on with you, it has nothing to do with me." David's expression darkened. "Sarah, I regret everything. Jessica, that woman, she's—" I raised my hand, cutting him off. "Enough. What she is or isn't is your business. You chose her. She was your perfect dream, remember? So no matter how bad she is now, you have to live with it. Just don't drag anyone else down with you." He froze. My words seemed to strike him harder than the slap from earlier. His cheeks flushed red. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low. "I know I hurt you, but I really do regret it. Can we try again? I promise I'll never betray you again." Then came the ultimate excuse. "She seduced both of us, me and Jessica. It was all her doing." Even now, he tried to lay the blame at Jessica's feet, acting like he had been trapped or tricked. If Jessica ever found out, I could only imagine the storm that would follow. I felt a wave of disgust rise in me and said nothing. Seeing my silence, David's eyes lit up with hope. He reached for my hand and said eagerly, "You're willing to forgive me, right? We were once husband and wife. That bond has to mean something. I believe you won't just stand by and watch me fall, Sarah." He added, trying to sound sincere. "Let's get back together. We can rebuild everything. I'll help win those clients back. You have no idea how bad things are for me right now. My sales have plummeted. People are calling me a fool, saying I have no judgment. I accept all of it. Let's start over, please." He wouldn't let go of my hand. I had reached the end of my patience. Without a word, I pulled my hand free, took out a tissue, and wiped each of my fingers one by one before throwing the crumpled tissue in his face. "You don't have a mirror? Then at least find a puddle and look at yourself. Look at what you've become. No ambition, no savings, nothing but an old house to your name. You think you have a future? I must have been out of my mind to fall for a man who betrayed me. Trash belongs in the trash. You and that woman deserve each other. So stop bothering decent people." I turned on my heel and walked straight into the medical office, shutting the door behind me and leaving him outside. When I came out after my appointment, David was gone. Someone said he had looked heartbroken when he left. Just as I was preparing to leave the building, a voice shouted, "Someone is trying to jump." I looked up. On the rooftop, I could see two people arguing and pushing each other. It was David and Jessica. Police officers arrived, and paramedics rushed to clear the area. I didn't stop. I turned away and left. Later that evening, I saw David on the news. He was screaming at Jessica, accusing her of ruining his life before pushing her off the roof. Luckily, there was an air cushion set up below. Jessica survived, but she fractured her spine and was paralyzed for life. Soon, someone online exposed more details. While they were abroad, Jessica had gotten into a fight with a hotel owner over poor accommodations. It turned out she had slept with the owner. David had found out and, out of jealousy, got into a physical fight with the man and was beaten up. Now I understood the bruises I saw on David's face when we met overseas. I hadn't asked back then, but now the pieces fit together. And even after all that, they still chose to stay together after returning home. I suppose that's what people call true love. I had nothing to say about it. I only knew one thing. I never wanted anything to do with David again. Because of David's unstable behavior, and since they were legally married, the Chen family applied for a psychiatric evaluation on his behalf. As for Jessica, she broke down completely after waking up and realizing she would never walk again. Her parents sued David for a huge sum in damages, but he had no money. His parents sold their old house to help, but it was far from enough. Both families became entangled in legal and emotional warfare. David refused to divorce Jessica. He promised to take full responsibility and care for her for the rest of her life. With no better option, Jessica's family eventually gave in. That was all I heard from friends until one day, 3 months later, Jessica herself called me. She sobbed into the phone saying, "Sarah, I'll give him back to you. Just give me $200,000, please." I saw a photo of her from that day. She was wearing a bright, playful dress, her makeup flawless. David stood beside her, face flushed red. She said, "You can have him." I hung up without replying. The next time I saw them was on a short video clip circulating online. Jessica was lying on a bed, skin and bones, her cheeks sunken. David sat beside her, tending to her needs, declaring over and over how he would never abandon her, that he would stay by her side for life. A viewer commented that she was developing bed sores and told David to apply medication. David said he would, but never moved. Jessica stayed silent. In truth, she didn't have the strength to speak up. She didn't even have the courage to ask for help anymore. No one knew what her life was really like behind the camera. But one thing was clear. Less than 6 months into her paralysis, she had already lost the will to live. So much for being his true love. The public began to see through the act. They called David out for exploiting sympathy, for playing the victim. Eventually, they remembered who he was. The man who cheated on his wife during a vacation. The man who lived off others. One by one, the followers unfollowed. I looked at the video of Jessica. Her eyes were blank, devoid of light, as if she had already given up on living. It was not hard to see that the life she was leading now felt worse than death itself. But this was the path she had chosen. From the very first day of our trip, Jessica should have realized that trying to take advantage of others would eventually lead to a heavy price. Later on, as my business shifted its focus to overseas markets, I returned to Northern Europe for another work trip. Out of curiosity, I booked a stay at that same remote hotel once again. To my surprise, just behind the hotel, there was a natural hot spring. The hotel owner greeted me warmly and invited me to take a soak. As we chatted, he looked at me thoughtfully and said, "A few years ago, some tourists from Asia came here. They broke a statue that had belonged to my late wife. When I asked for compensation, they had no money and even dared to make outrageous demands. I gave him a small smile and replied, 'Those people have already received their share of karma.' Later that night, I sat quietly in the warm water, the steam rising gently into the crisp air. When I tilted my head back, the stars above stretched across the sky in a dazzling, unfamiliar pattern. The view was unlike anything I had seen before, and with it came a fresh wave of inspiration. I knew then that my journey was far from over. There would be more beauty ahead, even if the road was not always smooth. As long as I paused to appreciate the scenery along the way, every stop would bring something new and worthwhile.